welcome to another tutorial, another After Effects tutorial. Today I will show you how to create the timeline in the documentary Last Dance. If you haven't seen it, it's really good. So the project and all the resources are here in the description in masterfx.com. Go and download and let's get started with this tutorial. Okay, let's start by creating a new composition. Rename it. Hit OK, and now we need to create another composition. In this case is the number one picture, the first picture. The width, set it to 1700 and set OK. Now duplicate this composition and drag it to the timeline comp, both layers, picture 1 and picture 2. Okay, now we need to create a new null object. Go to layer, new null object, and pig whip the picture 1 to the null object. Now we need to import the pictures and the asset that is in the resources. Click on the picture 1 and drag, select the rectangular tool, the max tool, and double click so you can create a perfect rectangle. But in the fill options, disable it, and for the stroke maybe 40, white stroke. And now drag the first picture. Now do the same thing on the picture 2. Now go back to the timeline and pig whip the picture 1 to the null one and go forward to the comp, maybe to the second 2, and hit on P for position, and maybe the second 2, and make a keyframe, and on the maybe second 4.5, drag the null object to the left. Make sure the picture it's out the comp. Now pig whip the picture 2 to the null object so the position stays the same, but the movement is linked to the null object. Now in the null object, go to the graph editor and select both keyframes and change to is and drag the Bezier points to make the animation more dynamic, something like this. Now here's the animation, but now in the original one, the picture is getting darker. So we need to create an adjustment layer and add a color correction effect, a levels effect, and in the levels effect maybe to the second one. Click on the keyframe for the histogram and drag to the second 2. Drag the level of white. You can see because the adjustment layer is below the picture 1, so drag it to the top and just create a little more contrast and maybe get darker the picture. Okay, now if you can see the picture is normal and then it's going darker, and we need to make the same for the final part. Press U to reveal the keyframes and click a keyframe without moving any value, and in the end point of the composition, click on reset to create to reset the effect. So now you have this animation, and we need to create the text, or I mean the arrows and the timeline. So with the text tool, click on anywhere of the composition and create a text. Change the font to whatever you want. Maybe 72 for the size. Go to Window and click on the Align panel and align horizontally and vertically, so we can have this title in the center of the composition. Now link this text to the null object with the pick whip tool, and for the second photo we need to create another title. So duplicate this title and release the link, and now go to the final part and link again to the null object. Now in the second one, change any date you want or any text you want, maybe like this. And now I'm going to click on the T for opacity and click on the U letter for the adjustment layer to see the keyframes. And if you can see, these two is not appearing, but click on a keyframe for the opacity and go to the second keyframe and drag the opacity value to 100, so the text is going to appear. Now create another keyframe and go to set it to 0, but this time I'm gonna add another animation in the last text with the S on the keyboard. Click on the scale, keyframe on the scale, and just increase a little bit the scale. So if you can see, the animation on the scale is now correct, but the anchor point is on the bottom left corner, so we need to press the Y on the keyboard and drag the anchor point to the center of the text. This way the scale animation is from the center. Now hide all the layers and create another shape layer with the pen tool. But before, I'm gonna show you a little trick that is super useful. Go to Preferences and go to General. Now in this window we have something like this center anchor point in the new shape layers. So make sure that you clicked on this checkbox, because no matter what you can create the shape layers, the anchor point is always going to be the center of the composition, right? So you need to create a line. Just click on anywhere of the outside of the composition and holding Shift, press to the horizontal line. Set the stroke to 3, maybe 3, and now look how the anchor point is below the line. But if I can deselect this line and select it again, you can see the anchor point is going to set it to the center, and now you can align it with the align panel. Okay, align it horizontally and vertically. Now we need to create another shape layer without selecting any layer, maybe 400 in this digital zoom, and drag these lines, a vertical line, and once again maybe no, I think it's good that size. So once again, deselect and select to the anchor point to be in the center and align horizontally and vertically. Now we need to create the months. This is the year, okay? Now we need to create 10 months, and to do that, go to shape layer, enter to the contents and go to shape. Press Ctrl D to duplicate, and in this one go to path, select the path, and with this selection tool make a selection for the first point and just make the line a little bit smaller. Now this path we need to add a repeater. Now selecting shape 2, go to add and add a repeater. In this case 10 copies, and these 10 copies in the transform of the repeater, set it to 25 on the position on the x-axis, something like this. Now for the shape layer, the main line, go to transform, and for the scale unlink the proportional scale and drag the second scale maybe to 150. And now if you can see, you have one big and 10 small, okay? Each one on increments of 25 pixels. Now select the two and group shapes to make a group, and to this group we need to add another repeater. In this case, this repeater is going to repeat all the lines, okay? And in this case the increment is 25 pixels and there are 10 months, so we need to create maybe like 30 years, and for the positions set it to 250 pixels, so the spacing is correct. Now go back to the normal view and change this position, not the contents but the shape layer. Hit on P and in the x-axis set it to 0. Now we have ready the timeline, but we need the dates. So with the text tool, just type any year you want or any word that you want. Change the layer, the font size and everything, and set it to the correct place, maybe here. Hit Ctrl D to duplicate and drag it with holding shift, drag it in the horizontal way, and now change the year, and you can do this to each year or each date that you need. Now all the line is not moving because it's horizontal, but all the others, it's going to move, so it's going to be hard to move this alone. So you can create a null object, go to layer, new null object, and add an effect, an expression control effect, and hit point control. Now click on P for the null object and drag the pick whip to the point for the point control. This way the position is controlled by the value of the point control. So no matter if we can, well you can link now all the lines and all the dates to the null object, And now to control the position of the timeline, just drag the x-axis on the point control. Now if you can see, no matter that the null object is no longer on the composition, just drag the x-axis on the point control and complete all the timeline, right? Now once you complete all the timeline, drag the null object so you can find your initial date, in this case 88 maybe, and for the go to the adjustment layer and hit the letter U to reveal the keyframes, and maybe with a little bit off, hit a keyframe on the point control and go forward maybe, I don't know, maybe 2 seconds, and drag the null object until you reach the next date, maybe here. If you can if you want to see where the center at of the composition, you can click on the tile action save, and now if you can see, the animation is ready. Now hit U on the null object keyframes and go to the graph editor and drag the Bezier to make more dynamic this animation. Now go out the graph editor and select all the timeline but the titles, all the shape layers and the titles, and click Ctrl Shift C or Command Shift C and pre-compose, maybe rename it and hit OK and activate all the layers. In this case, drag the timeline, scale it, maybe something like this, and create a mask, an ellipse mask. Drag this, maybe here, I think something like this. Now hit F to increase the feather. Now hit S, I'm gonna set it a little bit smaller, and for the dates, maybe a little bit off, hit T for the opacity and create a keyframe on the 0 value, go forward and set it to 100. Do the same for the final of the timeline, maybe here, set a keyframe, and now move forward and go to 0. Now the animation is complete and the movement of the null object of the photos is almost the same of the timeline. So we need to make the photos a little bit faster than the timeline. So the timeline is going to move. Now we need to create all the aesthetics for this composition, and now we need to activate the motion blur in all the layers. And if you can see, when the composition is moving, the motion blur is activated. Okay, now we need to create another adjustment layer to make a final look. Go to layer, new adjustment layer. To this layer we need to create a mask, an ellipse mask, and drag it from this point to this, something like, I think like this, but in the center. And now invert it. Hit F to increase the fader, maybe 200. And now we need to create some effects. Go to Effects and Presets and click Type Optics Compensation and drag it. Now for the lens distortion, set it to invert and add a 3D glasses. This is a trick to create chromatic aberration. So in this case, in the left view, click on adjustment layer, which is the same adjustment layer. And for the 3D view, set it to balanced color red and blue. Okay. Now everything looks the same, but we are controlling the chromatic aberration with this value. Set it to maybe 20. I think that looks okay. And we need to add a blur effect. Go to blur and sharpen and go to radial blur. It's kind big, so maybe 1.5. Now in the assets, I let you this texture, this dirt texture. So drag it to the top of the composition and decrease the opacity, maybe 30%, and set the blending mode to here in toggle switches and mode, set it to screen. Now we need to create a mask, a center mask, something like this, also inverted, and click F to increase the feather, maybe 250. And with this we have the timeline complete. Now you can download this project on masterfx.com, and if you can modify any characteristic, you can modify anything you need. The photos, go to the picture 1 and change this photo. For the dates, change this text, and for the timeline, go into the timeline and change all the numbers, change any number, and the animations is complete. Okay. Well guys, I hope you find this tutorial useful. You can follow me on every social media. Here is, you can find me as MasterFX with double S, and here is a video that you need to see. The button to subscribe to the channel. Remember to activate the notification bell, and as always, thanks for watching. I'm Master, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.